The message arrived during our anniversary dinner, nestled between congratulatory texts and photos from the evening. Just 12 simple words that shattered everything I thought I knew. Your husband isn't who you think he is. Ask him about Singapore. I stared at my phone under the table, my fingers trembling as I read it again. Across from me, Landon was deep in conversation with the sommelier, his face animated as he discussed vintage years and grape varieties. The candlelight caught the silver at his temples, and for a moment I saw him as I had that first day. Charming, sophisticated, seemingly perfect. Fiona? His voice pulled me back. Everything okay? I forced a smile, sliding my phone into my purse. Just checking the time. We don't want to be late for dessert. The restaurant buzzed around us, a symphony of clinking glasses and muted conversations. Our table, positioned in the corner with a view of the city lights, felt suddenly claustrophobic. A year of marriage, and now this. This thing hanging between us, invisible but heavy as lead. You've barely touched your risotto, Landon noted, reaching across to touch my hand. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine. The lie tasted bitter. Just thinking about how much has changed in a year. His fingers tightened slightly on mine. All good changes, though, right? I watched his face carefully, searching for... what? A tell? A crack in the facade? Singapore must have been quite a change for you. His hand withdrew so quickly it knocked over his water glass. The liquid spread across the white tablecloth like truth seeping through lies. What about Singapore? His voice was steady, but his eyes, those eyes that had once made me weak at the knees, darted away. You tell me. The waiter appeared with dessert, some elaborate chocolate creation that had seemed exciting when we ordered it. Now it just looked like another pretty lie. It was just business, Landon said finally, his fork scraping against the plate. Years ago, before we met. Nothing worth mentioning. Nothing worth mentioning in an entire year of marriage? He set down his fork with deliberate care. Who's been talking to you about Singapore? Does it matter? Of course it matters. His tone sharpened. Has my mother been... Clara? No. I laughed, but it came out wrong, hollow and harsh. Why would your mother know something about you that I don't? The couple at the next table glanced over. Landon lowered his voice. This isn't the place for this conversation. When is the place? When is the time? Because so far, it seems like never was your preference. His jaw tightened. I'd seen that look before, usually when dealing with difficult suppliers at his restaurant. Never directed at me. You're making something out of nothing. Then why are you so defensive? I'm not... He stopped, took a careful breath. Can we please just enjoy our anniversary? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I think I need some air. Fiona, don't... But I was already walking away, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown. In the bathroom, I gripped the marble counter and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back at me wore expensive jewelry and a designer dress. Gifts from Landon. Carefully curated pieces of the life we'd built together. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. Ask about the fire. Ask about Mia. Mia, his business partner. The woman who always seemed to be there, just at the edges of our life, watching with those knowing eyes. I splashed cold water on my face, smearing my carefully applied makeup. Outside, Landon would be waiting, probably already crafting explanations, excuses, more pretty lies to add to our collection. The question wasn't whether to go back out there. The question was, what version of my husband would I find when I did? The drive home stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Landon's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and I watched the city lights blur past, each one carrying away another fragment of what I'd thought was real. Singapore was complicated, he finally said, breaking 20 minutes of silence. I made mistakes. Bad ones. What kind of mistakes? He pulled into our driveway but didn't kill the engine. The kind that cost people everything. Before I could respond, headlights swept across us. Clara's Mercedes purred to a stop behind our car, and my stomach clenched. Of course she'd be here. She had a sixth sense for crisis, always materializing when Landon's facade showed cracks. "What's she doing here?" I asked. I texted her. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "We need to handle this as a family." A family? The word tasted like ash. "Since when does family mean keeping secrets from your wife?" Clara rapped on my window, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the glass. I got out, letting the door swing wider than necessary, forcing her to step back. "Darling," she said, her smile sharp as a blade. "What's this I hear about you making a scene at dinner?" "Mother," Landon warned, but she waved him off. "The first anniversary is paper, dear," she continued. Not drama. The front door opened and Tessa emerged, arms crossed. Of course she was here too. The whole cavalry assembled to manage the situation. To manage me. "You knew," I said to Clara, "about Singapore, about Mia." Something flickered in her eyes. Triumph, maybe, or satisfaction. "There are things you don't understand about this family." "Then explain them to me." Tessa laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Oh, now she wants explanations? After a year of playing perfect wife, suddenly she's entitled to our history?" "Tessa," Landon snapped. "Not now." "When then?" I demanded. "When were any of you planning to tell me about the fire?" The word hung in the air like smoke. Clara's smile vanished. Tessa's face went white. "And Landon." Landon looked like I'd struck him. "Who told you about that?" Clara's voice had dropped to a whisper. I pulled out my phone, showed them the messages. "Someone thinks I deserve the truth." "Those messages," Clara said, "are from someone trying to destroy this family. Is that what you want, Fiona? To destroy everything we've built?" "What you've built is a house of lies." "What we've built," she stepped closer, "is a legacy. One that was flourishing until you came along with your yoga classes and your modern ideas about transparency." "Mother," Landon tried again, but she silenced him with a look. "The question isn't what happened in Singapore," Clara continued. "The question is whether you can be trusted with this family's future." My phone buzzed again. Another message. I opened it, aware of their eyes on me, and felt my breath catch. A photo this time. Landon and Mia, years younger, standing in front of a building I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Before the flames." "Show me," Landon said, reaching for the phone. I pulled back. "Like you showed me the truth about your past?" "Fiona," his voice cracked. "Please." "Let her go, Landon," Tessa said. "She's already chosen sides." "The only side I'm on is the truth." Clara laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Truth? In this family, truth is whatever we decide it needs to be." I looked at them. This family I'd married into. Clara with her iron control, Tessa with her barely concealed hatred, and Landon, my husband, a stranger wearing a familiar face. "I'm going to find out what happened," I said, "with or without your help." "Be careful what you wish for," Clara replied. "Some truths are better left buried." I walked past them, into the house that no longer felt like home. Behind me, I heard Clara's voice, low and urgent. "Handle this, Landon, before she ruins everything." In our bedroom, I locked the door and opened my laptop. Singapore. A fire. Mia. Somewhere in the digital ether, the truth was waiting. And I would find it, even if it burned everything down around me. My phone buzzed one final time. "Tomorrow, noon. The old marina. Come alone." Outside, I could hear them talking, planning, probably deciding how to contain me. They had no idea what they'd started. No idea what I was capable of. Let them plot. I had my own plans now. The marina's wooden planks creaked under my feet as I approached Slip 23. Salt air and diesel fumes mixed with the metallic taste of fear in my mouth. I'd told Landon I was teaching a private yoga session. Another lie to add to our growing collection. A familiar figure stood at the end of the dock. Mia. Of course it was her. She wore oversized sunglasses despite the overcast day, her dark hair whipping in the wind. "I wondered if you'd come," she said, not turning around. "You sent the messages." "Some of them." She finally faced me. "The truth has many messengers, Fiona." I kept my distance, noting how close she stood to the edge. "Why now?" "Because I saw the transfer documents on Landon's desk yesterday. He's signing over his share of the restaurant to Clara." She paused. "All of it, including my investment." That couldn't be right. The restaurant was Landon's life, his dream. Why would he? To pay old debts. Mia's laugh was bitter. Singapore wasn't just a bad business deal. It was fraud, arson, and 3 people dead. My phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. "Where are you, really? Mother's asking." I ignored it. "Tell me everything." "Better if I show you." Mia pulled out a USB drive. Financial records, emails, insurance claims. Everything Clara buried to protect her precious son. "And you kept copies." "Insurance of my own." She held out the drive. "The question is, what will you do with it?" Before I could answer, another voice cut through the wind. "Nothing if she's smart." Tessa emerged from behind a storage shed, her heels clicking against the dock. "Did you really think we wouldn't track your phone?" My hand closed around the USB drive as Mia stepped back. "Your brother's not the victim here, Tessa. He's the perpetrator." "You don't understand our family." "I understand enough." I turned to leave, but Tessa blocked my path. "Give me the drive." "Or what?" "Or I tell Mother about your little secret." Tessa's smile was cruel. "The pregnancy test in your bathroom trash. Does Landon know yet?" My hand instinctively went to my stomach. I'd only known for 3 days, hadn't told anyone. "That's right," she continued. "Think carefully about whose life you're willing to destroy." "Fiona," Mia said quietly, "the insurance payout from Singapore funded the restaurant. Every dollar you've lived on, every piece of jewelry Landon's given you, it's all blood money." Tessa lunged for the drive. I stepped back, too close to the edge. The wood was slick from morning rain. "Give it to me." She grabbed my arm. I twisted away, but my foot slipped. For one terrifying moment, I was falling. Then Mia's hand caught my jacket, yanking me back. "Enough," Mia shouted. "Tell her the rest, Tessa. Tell her about your role in all this." Tessa went pale. "You don't know anything. I know you were in Singapore too. I know about the payments to your offshore account." My phone buzzed again. "Landon. Where are you? We need to talk." "Choose now, Fiona," Mia said. "But remember, Clara will sacrifice anyone to protect her family's reputation." Anyone. I looked at the drive in my hand, thought of the baby growing inside me. A baby who would be born into this web of lies unless I did something now. "I'm going to the police," I said. "You'll regret this," Tessa hissed. Mother will what?" I stepped closer to her. "Bury another truth? Destroy more lives? Not this time." I walked away, the USB drive burning in my pocket like a lit fuse. Behind me, I heard Tessa on her phone. "Mother, we have a problem." Back in my car, I plugged in the drive. Dozens of folders appeared. Financial records, photos, email chains. One photo showed a younger Landon and Tessa standing in front of a Singapore restaurant. The date stamp was 1 day before the fire. My phone lit up with messages. "Clara. Come to the house. Now." Landon. "Whatever Mia told you, she's lying." Tessa. "Last chance to do this the easy way." I started the engine but didn't drive toward their house. Instead, I headed for the police station. Let them scheme and threaten. I had evidence now, and more importantly, someone else to protect. The game had changed, and so had the stakes. They wanted to talk about family? Fine. Let's talk about what family really means. I never made it to the police station. 3 blocks away, my engine died. completely dead, as if someone had reached inside and pulled its heart out. When I turned the key, nothing happened, not even a click. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Check the trunk. The parking lot was empty except for a black SUV idling 2 spaces away. Tinted windows, engine running, waiting. In my trunk, I found my answer. The battery cables had been cut. Clean, professional work. They'd been watching me, planning this. Need a ride? Clara's voice made me jump. She stood beside the SUV, door open like an invitation, or a trap. I'll call a tow truck. With what phone? On cue, my screen went black. Amazing how fragile technology can be. I clutched my purse tighter, feeling the USB drive inside. What do you want? To show you something. Your choice, come willingly, or I'll have Landon's lawyers file emergency custody papers. I'm sure a judge would be interested in a pregnant woman's erratic behavior. The SUV's engine purred, waiting. How long have you known? About the baby? Longer than you. She smiled. There are no secrets in this family, Fiona. Only things we choose not to discuss. The drive was silent. We passed the city limits, heading toward the industrial district. Clara studied property records on her tablet while I watched abandoned warehouses scroll past. We stopped at a burned-out building. The sign, barely legible, read, Pacific Rim Fusion. Landon's first restaurant, Clara said, before Singapore. What happened? Progress, development, change. Each word dropped like a stone. Sometimes things need to burn before they can be rebuilt. Inside, the destruction was absolute. Charred beams, melted fixtures, dreams reduced to ash. In what must have been the kitchen, Clara stopped. 3 people died here, she said. Not in Singapore. Here, in my son's restaurant. I stared at her. What? A grease fire, officially. Insurance paid out enough to fund the Singapore venture. She touched a blackened wall. Landon was devastated, blamed himself. That's when Tessa suggested expanding overseas. A fresh start. And the people who died? Tragic accident, just like Singapore would have been if things had gone according to plan. She turned to face me. But Mia got cold feet, warned the authorities, cost us everything. My hand went to my stomach instinctively. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what family means, what we'll do to protect our own. She pulled out her phone, showed me a video. Landon in his office, head in his hands, while Mia stood over him. The timestamp was yesterday. He's signing over the restaurant because Mia's blackmailing him, Clara said. She thinks she can take everything we've built, just like you do. I want the truth. Truth? She laughed. The truth is you're carrying my grandchild. That makes you family. But it also makes you vulnerable. My phone suddenly buzzed back to life. A new message appeared. Final warning. Walk away. The choice is yours, Clara said. Be part of this family, really part of it, or lose everything, including your child. You can't. I can do anything. She stepped closer. Ask yourself, what kind of mother would choose revenge over her baby's future? The drive back was a blur. Clara dropped me at my car, now mysteriously working again. Before I got out, she touched my arm. One more thing. She handed me a folder. Proof that Mia was behind the Singapore fire. Anonymous tip to the police would solve all our problems. I watched the SUV disappear, then opened the folder. The evidence was perfect. Too perfect. My phone buzzed one last time. Mia, whatever she showed you, remember. Clara plays the long game. Ask yourself why she really wanted you to marry Landon. I sat in my car, feeling my baby move for the first time. A flutter, like a warning. The USB drive felt heavy in my purse, but Clara's folder felt heavier. The truth wasn't just about Singapore anymore. It was about here, now, and the choices that would shape not just my future, but my child's. I started the engine but didn't move. The question wasn't where to go anymore. It was who to become. The yoga studio was empty except for me and my laptop, spreadsheets glowing in the pre-dawn darkness. 3 weeks of careful planning had led to this moment. My online wellness platform was ready to launch. My escape route, carefully hidden from Clara's surveillance. A shadow moved across the window. Tessa. Of course they were watching. My phone lit up with a message from Ethan. Got the incorporation papers? You're officially a business owner. I smiled, remembering Clara's condescending words about my little yoga classes. She had no idea I'd been building my own empire, right under her nose. The studio door opened. Mia walked in, wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Interesting time for yoga, she said, dropping her mat beside me. Interesting time for spying. I'm not here for Clara. She sat down, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. The restaurant's books are being audited next week. My fingers stilled on the keyboard. Landon didn't mention that. Landon doesn't know, yet. She pulled out her phone, showed me an email. The IRS is very interested in certain overseas transactions. You reported them. Actually, your friend Ethan did. Anonymous tip. She watched my face carefully. Didn't know he worked for the financial crimes division, did you? The room suddenly felt too small. Ethan had never mentioned. But then there were lots of things people didn't mention in this family. What do you want? Same thing you do. Freedom. She stood up, stretching like this was actually about yoga. Clara's planning to frame me for everything. The fires, the fraud, all of it. But she doesn't know about the backup drives. Drives? Plural? Insurance comes in many forms. She smiled. Check your email in an hour. Make copies. Lots of copies. The door chimed again. Landon walked in, looking surprised to see us together. Early morning meeting? His tone was light, but his eyes were hard. Just catching up, Mia said, gathering her things. Congratulations, by the way, on the baby. She left us alone in the growing dawn light. Landon picked up my laptop, studying the website design. So this is what you've been working on. Someone has to think about our future. Our future? He set the laptop down carefully. Or your escape plan. Can it be both? His laugh was bitter. Mother warned me you'd try something like this. Said you were too independent for your own good. My own good? Or hers? You don't understand what she's protected us from. Like the truth about the fires? He flinched. That was different. We were desperate. We? Or you? Everything I did was for us. For our family. Family? I stood up, anger finally breaking through. Your family burned people alive for insurance money. Twice. And now what? You're going to let them frame Mia to protect your mother? You don't know what you're talking about. My phone buzzed. Mia's email had arrived early. I opened it, turned the screen toward him. His face went ash white. Where did you get those? Does it matter? The truth was always there, waiting to burn everything down. He reached for my phone, but I pulled back. Fiona, please. If Mother sees these... She'll what? Kill me too? Frame me for another fire? She'll take everything, including our baby. The words hung between us like smoke. Outside, the sun was rising, painting the room in shades of gold and shadow. My laptop pinged. A notification from my website. First customer signed up, then another, and another. My freedom. Building one click at a time. I'm launching the business, I said. With or without your support. She won't let you. She can't stop me, not anymore. He stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. You have to choose, Fiona. The business or the baby. She'll make sure you can't have both. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. IRS raid scheduled for Monday. Get out now. I looked at Landon. Really looked at him. The man I'd married was somewhere in there, buried under years of his mother's manipulation. But I couldn't save him. Not without sacrificing myself. I already chose, I said, gathering my things. I choose truth. I choose freedom. I choose our child having a mother they can be proud of. Fiona. But I was already walking away, toward the rising sun and whatever inferno waited on the other side of truth. Behind me, my phone lit up with Clara's number. Let her call. Let her scheme. I had my own fires to start now. The restaurant was burning. Not literally, not yet, but I could smell the smoke of its collapse in every frantic phone call, every whispered conversation between Landon and Clara. The IRS audit had triggered a cascade of financial disasters, and now their empire was crumbling. I stood in Landon's office, watching him pace between stacks of financial records. My growing belly pressed against his desk as I leafed through the documents Mia had provided. "They're freezing our accounts," he said, voice hollow. "All of them." "Including mine?" His silence was answer enough. I thought of my new business, my clients, my chance at independence. All potentially gone because I'd let him add his name to my accounts. "For protection," he'd said. The irony tasted like ash. "Mother has a plan," he started. "Another fire?" He flinched. "She wants to transfer everything to you, temporarily, until this blows over. Make me the fall guy. Make you the savior." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Think about the baby." The baby, always their favorite weapon now. My phone buzzed. "Ethan. They're moving early. Get out now." The office door burst open. Clara swept in, Tessa trailing behind like a shadow. "Sign these." Clara dropped a stack of papers on the desk. "Quickly." I glanced at the first page. Property transfer documents. My name everywhere. "No, this isn't a request." Clara's voice could have frozen flame. "Sign or I'll make sure you never see a penny from that little online business of yours." "You can't." "I already have." She smiled, sharp as broken glass. "Check your website." My hands shaking, I pulled up the site on my phone. Error messages, server crashes, customer complaints flooding in. "Amazing how fragile digital businesses are," Tessa said. "One wrong line of code." "This is illegal. Prove it." Clara pushed the papers closer. "Sign and everything goes back to normal. Your business, your accounts, your life." "My prison." Landon touched my shoulder. "Please, Fiona. We can fix this together." "Together?" I laughed, the sound scratching my throat. "When were we ever together? You've always belonged to her." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Time's up," Clara snapped. "Sign." I picked up the pen, saw my hand trembling above the paper. One signature to save everything I'd built. One moment of surrender. The office door crashed open again. Federal agents poured in, badges flashing, voices overlapping in a chaos of commands. "IRS criminal investigation." "Hands where we can see them." "Step away from the desk." Clara's face transformed into something ancient and terrible. "You," she hissed at me. "You did this." "Actually," Mia's voice cut through the chaos as she entered behind the agents. "I did. Freeze all documents." An agent grabbed the transfer papers. "These are evidence now." I watched them handcuff Landon, saw tears tracking down his face. Not for me, not for our baby, for his mother's disappointment. "Fiona," Clara called as they led her out. "Remember what family means." "I do." I touched my belly. "That's why I'm choosing a different one." Later, sitting in Ethan's office at the federal building, I learned the full scope of their crimes. Not just the fires, but years of fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. My signature on 100 documents I'd trusted Landon to explain truthfully. "You'll have to testify," Ethan said gently, "against all of them." "Including my husband?" "Especially your husband." My phone lit up with notifications. My website was back online, but the damage was done. Customers fleeing, reputation in tatters. Everything I'd built, scorched by Clara's final act of vengeance. "We can protect you," Ethan continued. Witness protection, new identity, fresh start. And my baby? Will never know their father's name. I stared out his window at the city lights, each one representing a life untouched by the inferno I'd walked into. Somewhere out there was a future without Landon, without Clara, without the weight of their legacy. But first, I had to burn the last bridge. When do we start? Ethan slid a folder across his desk. There's something else you should know. About why Clara chose you specifically. About your own mother's connection to their first restaurant. My hand froze above the folder. Sometimes the past isn't just smoke and mirrors. Sometimes it's gasoline, waiting for a match. Show me. The courtroom felt like another restaurant about to burn. Clara sat at the defendant's table, immaculate as always, while Tessa whispered urgently in her lawyer's ear. Landon wouldn't look at me. My mother's autopsy report lay heavy in my hands. 20 years ago, she'd been one of the 3 victims in that first restaurant fire. Not an accident. Not random. A message to her husband, my father, about debts owed to Clara's family. Mrs. Bennett, the prosecutor said, please tell the court about your conversation with the defendant on March 15th. I touched my now prominent belly, feeling my baby shift. 7 months along, and Clara was still trying to claim custody from behind bars. She told me about the first fire, I said. About my mother. Clara's face remained carved from stone, but her fingers twitched, the first crack in her facade I'd ever seen. And what specifically did she say? Objection. Clara's lawyer stood. Hearsay. Your Honor, the prosecutor countered. The defendant's statements to Mrs. Bennett established pattern and intent. Approach the bench. While the lawyers huddled with the judge, Landon finally met my eyes. He mouthed something that might have been sorry or might have been stop. Too late for either. My phone buzzed silently. Mia. Clara's playing you. Check your email now. Under the table, I opened the message. Security footage from the prison where Clara was held before trial. She was talking to someone. As I watched, the visitor turned slightly. Ethan. My heart stopped. The timestamp was 2 days ago. The lawyers returned to their positions. Proceed, the judge said. But before the prosecutor could speak, Clara stood up. I'd like to address the court, she announced. And my daughter-in-law. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but Clara waved him off. The judge leaned forward, intrigued. Fiona, she said, her voice carrying to every corner. Tell them about your father's gambling debts, about how he begged me for help, offered anything in exchange, even his wife. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Your Honor. The prosecutor protested, but Clara continued. Tell them how Ethan works for me, not the IRS. How every piece of evidence, every anonymous tip was orchestrated to bring you here, to this moment, to complete what your mother started. My hands shook. You're lying. Am I? She smiled. Check your father's death certificate, the date, the location. Singapore, I whispered. The night before the second fire, he came to warn Landon, to stop history from repeating. Such a shame about that mugging gone wrong. The prosecutor was shouting now, the judge threatening contempt. But Clara's words cut through everything. You didn't marry into this family, Fiona. You were born into it. Your mother's death paid your father's debt. And now your testimony, your revenge, it's just completing the circle. Order. The judge's gavel cracked like gunfire. Mrs. Whitmore, one more word and... You want to know who really sent those first messages about Singapore? Clara's eyes locked onto mine. Ask your mother's sister. Ask Mia. The world tilted. Mia, my aunt. The pieces fell into place like ash settling after an inferno. Security officers moved toward Clara, but she'd achieved her goal. The damage was done. Every piece of evidence, every step of my investigation, all part of her design. The truth, she called as they led her away, is that you're more like me than your mother ever was. We both know how to burn things down. In the chaos that followed, I sat perfectly still, one hand on my belly, the other clutching my phone with Ethan's betrayal frozen on the screen. Landon approached cautiously. Did you know? About Mia? Did you know about my mother? His silence was answer enough. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, but I barely saw them. My phone lit up with a final message from an unknown number. Your mother tried to expose us too. History doesn't just repeat, it burns brighter the second time. Welcome to the family, niece. I deleted the message, straightened my spine, and faced the cameras. Clara wanted circles. I'd show her spirals. Some fires don't just destroy. They forge something new from the ashes. Let them all burn. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Clara sat across from me, still elegant in her orange jumpsuit, while my son kicked inside me, as if sensing the tension. Have you chosen a name? She asked. You didn't request this visit to discuss baby names. She smiled. That same sharp, knowing smile that had once made me feel like an outsider. Now I recognized it as fear. The appeals court decision comes tomorrow, she said. Last chance to recant your testimony. And let you win? Oh, Fiona. She leaned forward. I already won. Every move you made was orchestrated. Every piece of evidence, every revelation, all part of my design. Except one thing. I placed a folder on the table between us. The original insurance investigation from my mother's death. The real one. Not the doctored version you showed the police. Her fingers twitched. That tell I'd learned to recognize. Mia gave you that? No. I found it myself. In the one place you'd never think to look. My father's old yoga studio. The one place that never burned. For the first time, I saw genuine surprise crack through her facade. The investigator knew about the accelerant. I continued. About the timing. About everything. He just needed one person brave enough to come forward. And you think that makes you the hero of this story? No. It makes me my mother's daughter. The guard approached, signaling time was up. I stood, one hand supporting my belly. You know what I realized, Clara? You didn't orchestrate my revenge. You taught me how to take it. And now your own lesson is burning you alive. She grabbed my wrist as I turned to leave. Family is forever, Fiona. Blood always tells. You're right. I pulled free. That's why I'm breaking the cycle. Outside, Landon waited by his car. He'd lost weight in the months since the trial, lost that polished shine Clara had cultivated so carefully. The restaurant sold, he said. New owners take possession tomorrow. And Tessa? Took the plea deal, 5 years. He hesitated. And Mia? Gone, like she was always meant to be. I touched my belly. Some aunts are better as ghosts. The wind carried the scent of autumn, of endings and beginnings, of smoke cleared from the air. I never wanted. He started. I know. And I did know. He'd been Clara's first victim, shaped by her flames since childhood. That's why I'm giving you a choice. I handed him an envelope. Inside was a copy of my mother's investigation report, along with divorce papers. Choose who you want to be, I said. Your mother's son, or your child's father. But choose carefully, because this time I'm the one watching for flames. He took the envelope, his hands trembling slightly. And if I choose wrong? Then you'll learn what your mother taught me. Some fires are meant to destroy, but others... I smiled, feeling my baby move again. Others forge something stronger from the ashes. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Like mother, like daughter. The game never ends. I deleted it without responding. Let them plot and scheme. I had my own legacy to build now. One that wouldn't need flames to flourish. Landon watched me walk away. The envelope clutched in his hands like a lifeline or a death sentence. His choice to make. In my car, I touched the steering wheel where my mother's hands had once rested, back when she taught me to drive, back before Clara's first fire claimed her. The leather was warm, like skin, like truth, like revenge served at exactly the right temperature. I started the engine, feeling the future kick inside me. A future built not on Clara's ashes, but on my own strength. Let them wonder who really won. Let them search for hidden messages and secret schemes. Some victories don't need witnesses. Some revenge is best served in silence, in the quiet moments between heartbeats, in the space between what was destroyed and what rises in its place. I drove away from the prison, from Landon, from the weight of 2 generations of fire and revenge. The sun painted the sky in shades of amber and gold, like flames frozen in time, like a reminder that even the brightest fires eventually burn themselves out. But some embers never die. They just wait, patient as karma, for the right moment to ignite, right moment to ignite, right moment to ignite, right moment to ignite, right moment to ignite.